will call the Boise Districting Commission Wednesday, November 16th meeting, 2022 meeting to order. First is attendance.
Love.
Here.
Perry.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Biker.
Here.
Valderrama. Here.
All right. First business is minutes. Is there a motion to approve the November 2nd, 2022 meeting minutes?
Madam Chair, I've reviewed the minutes from November 2nd and find them in order, and I move for their approval.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Meeting minutes for the November 2nd, 2022 meeting are approved. Next, we will do a brief overview of some legal requirements. Hannah Grass-Greer requested this, and she will discuss those for us.
Thank you. I'll just wait for the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm just going to go over what I actually presented to you all in your first meeting and the information you've used the entire time to guide you through the process, both as a refresher for you all before you go into final deliberations and for members of the public. So I'm going to go over the various laws that govern this process. First, the Constitution. Districts must be as equal in population as practicable. You'll hear this as a theme. The Voting Rights Act, you cannot have any voting dilution. So no districts drawn to minimize or cancel out the voting strength of a racial or language minority, and no districts adopted for a discriminatory purpose. State law requires that each district consist of one or more contiguous election precincts. And each district must contain the same number of people based upon the most recent federal census data to the nearest extent possible. And finally, the city code also requires that each district consist of one or more contiguous election precincts. Each district shall contain the same population based on the most recent census data to the nearest extent possible, with a maximum 10% variance between the least and most populated districts. The districts must be compact, and the plan cannot contain shoestring districts, and districts shall not be drawn to protect incumbents. And then in addition to the laws governing this process, we also have policies that provide guidelines to you all. Again, they reiterate the substantially equal populations in each district, and the election precincts, in addition to keeping census tracts whole to the extent possible, and communities of interest such as neighborhood associations to the extent possible. And then if you aren't able to keep any of those together, including neighborhood associations or precincts, just keep those to a minimum and highlight those in the plan. And then I just wanted to go over again the public input process. So written comments were accepted up to 1 week after the hearing where you reviewed what was map 11. So that would have been last Wednesday, November 9th. And districting plans were also accepted up until a week before this meeting, which also fell last Wednesday, November 9th. And then just to go over the process and meetings that you held. You started on August 31st. You held a couple of meetings in September. You had the first public meeting mid-October. You deliberated and moved map 11 forward on the 26th. November 2nd, you held a public hearing on that plan. And today you're in your final meeting where you'll select a final plan to move forward. You'll move that plan forward to City Council, and they will hold a public hearing on November 29th. And they will have that plan adopted by the end of the year. And that is it, unless you have any questions.
Madam Chair, I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So on the November 29th, there'll be another opportunity for the public to speak up?
Yes, that's correct. It will be a public hearing, so the council will receive a report
on the commission process and the map that you all land on, and then the public will be able to testify.
Okay, thank you, Hannah.
All right, if there's no other questions, thank you, Hannah. We will move on to discussion and deliberation of our draft plans. I'd like to open that up with a few comments. First, kind of a brief overview like Hannah was going through. We had a whole total of 7 meetings from August 13th through 2 weeks ago on the November 2nd, right? Was that? Yeah. That's right. And while we were required to hold one public hearing on the draft plans, we decided to hold multiple. We actually had one earlier in October, and then on the 19th. Because we wanted as much dialogue between us and the community as possible to develop these plans. And that is evidenced by the fact that we did actually, the basis of our map was a publicly drawn map. It was not one we drew ourselves. And then we held more public testimony on the 2nd of November. And we accepted additional submissions, testimony through public comment, through the website portal, email to City Hall, as well as additionally drawn maps submitted through other technology and descriptions. Let's see. And altogether, we received 20 map submissions through our software. These 20 maps are a mix of those submitted by both the commissioners and the public. And like I said, we received more than just that through other means as well. Today, we will review, discuss, and deliberate 2 plans before making our final decision. First is Map 11. Map 11 was created through a combination of public and commissioner effort. Map 11 was based on Map 8, submitted by a member of the public, Jordan Morales. And then the commission was presented with Map 8 and heard testimony. And then Commissioner Spiker worked really hard to improve upon it. And the result was Map 11. And we moved that forward to public hearing for this November 2nd hearing. Map 20 is the second map we will review tonight. This map was created by Commissioner Spiker as well, taking Map 11 and making adjustments based on the public input from the second. It was made available on the commission website on November 9th. And then I believe Commissioner Spiker would probably like to explain his map and go into details about it. But before we do that, when we vote and when we have this discussion, let's keep in mind of legal requirements and make sure that we're voting on legal requirements and not just how we feel. I want to make clear that we will be only moving forward with 1 map, not 2. It was brought up that in the public testimony that, hey, maybe send 2 to the city council. Well, we will only be sending 1 tonight. And hope it will be one of these 2. So Travis, if you would like to discuss your map, please.
I guess my map was just a variation of map 11, and I took into consideration the input we received on October 19th. The last public input, November 2nd. And I did some refinements, and I worked with Eric and managed to get 0 precinct splits, which was one of our goals. It has a little bit higher deviation than map 11 did. I'm hopeful that it'll balance out over time, but I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know where the growth is going to be. It does have a couple more neighborhoods association splits, but for the whole, it keeps larger chunks of neighborhood associations together. The biggest being the West Boise Neighborhood Association, which is what I feel like we got the most feedback from on November 2nd. It keeps, one of our initial goals, I guess, was to try and keep 2 districts north of the river. It keeps that, which was also part of map 11 and map 8. It doesn't address every concern, but I don't think we can address every concern that we've heard from the public. I I wish we could, but I think it's impossible. But yeah, I guess that's, I feel like this is a finer, revision of map 11. And it addresses the majority of the concerns we've heard during both of the public input meetings. So.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Travis before we kind of start into actual discussion and deliberation?
Chair Love, if I can comment.
Absolutely, Chair or Commissioner Peter.
I think Commissioner Spiker did a great job in incorporating the comments we heard, some very strong feelings out there in the public, and did a superb job of modifying 11, which, as you know, I voted against. So I was glad to see map 20 and see that it split 0 precincts, which was certainly not easy to do, as well as meeting the concerns for West Boise. So thank you very much, Commissioner Spiker, and for putting that together. Yes, the spread is larger, but given the strong opinions that we heard from the public that were often very specific, I think that we are going to have to make some compromises, obviously, and the precincts are not something we're willing to compromise on. So I think the spread of the populations are something we'll have to recommend that they live with.
So I have a couple comments kind of about that as well. I want to address some of the public feedback that we got about map 11. I still really like map 11. I like the fact that the deviation is lower. I like the fact that there's less neighborhood association splits, even though, yes, it might keep certain areas of West Boise neighborhoods associations together, larger chunks of it. I think you're ultimately splitting more, and just because it might be a smaller association doesn't necessarily mean it's less less worthy. And we should, part of our goal was to split as few as possible. And so I feel like, to the benefit of map 11, and it stands up to the fact that it splits less precinct or less neighborhood associations. Other comments I have about some of the feedback we received is some people were upset at the idea of having someone from one side of West Boise near like McMillan and 5 Mile representing Southwest Boise down by Victory Road and 5 Mile. And I actually went onto Google Maps, and I measured the distance between all of these districts. And what I did is I went from one end to the other. So map 11, if we look at it, District 1, the distance of District 1 was between somewhere of 6.5 and 7 miles between the two. But you look at District 4 and it's actually 10 miles from one end to the other. If you look at District 6, it's a full 6 miles. District 5, it's actually 8 miles. 2 and 3 are about 5.5 to 6. So I don't think like that is necessarily a argument that stands up to the rest of the districts. We're not trying to isolate West Boise that way. We're not trying to pick on them in that sense. I think we genuinely were trying to say, hey, this is a good line. It is a very easily identifiable line. It largely lines up with the West Ada School District. In my experience living in West Boise, because I was someone who went to Capitol High School, I lived off of Maple Grove. I had friends all east of 5 Mile. I didn't have any friends west of 5 Mile. I think that's, to me, that was and largely my parents are the same. I really think I like map 11, and yeah. And if anyone else has any comments.
Sure, Love, could I respond to what your comment there on the distances?
Uh-huh.
The thing about, no, I forget the exact recounting. 4 is over in the foothills. Is that right, in the northeast?
4 is the crosses the airport.
Okay, 4 crosses the airport. So the 2 you were talking about was 4 and 3? The
5,
distances?
6 is the same distance as 1. 5 is 8 miles, and that
Okay.
goes from Hulls Gulch all the way down to Barber Park, pretty much. And then 4 goes from Eckert Lane, I think, all the way to South Pole Road, or just past South Pole Road.
Some of those districts, the ones along the foothills, are very long. And you had asked one of our presenters last week or 2 weeks ago about that. Oh, how was the proposed one in District 11 different from Northeast Boise, let's say? And I think the difference is that those districts that are on the foothills, the residents of that area share that part of their experience and something that's really important to them. The foothills are what connect those neighborhoods. Even though they're a long distance, it's a very important feature of their economy, their quality of life, and what they're looking at protecting. And they feel very strongly about protecting them. So
I
think
understand
that
what you're
there's-
saying with that, but for instance, I live in District 5. I don't live in the foothills. I
I don't mean living in the
I
foothills,
live
but
down by the river.
proximity.
But also, just because District 5 didn't have to be that long, right? Like, you could have gone more towards the center of the city with that. And I guess that's what I'm saying, is that we're not necessarily isolating any one district with map 11. We're not making it an outlier by having it be this long skinny district, because it's not in comparison to all the other districts. It's
I don't
on
think
average
it's
about the same.
It's not the shape, it's the community differences along that stretch. And why the boundary would be put there, other than choosing 5 Mile because it's an important boundary. But there's no, I mean, as they testified, as you get south of Ustick, as shown on map 20, there's definitely a change in the communities. You find larger lots. You drive back in some of those neighborhoods and you'll find these 5-acre lots. You'll find small farms. You'll find a different kind of community as you move further south and down to Victory. And the residents are very concerned about growth and their representation in the discussions of how Boise is going to grow. It's very, very important to them. North of Ustick, it's pretty well built out entirely. There is not a lot of open land up in that area. But Southwest Boise, it's very important to those people that they have a voice that understands how they want to protect their way of life when there's just an increasing pressure on more and more development in their backyards. And that's going to be a tough call for the city council as it is. But if there's nobody there representing that area, I think it's truly going to be felt by the city.
And I would make the argument that whoever is elected has to represent all of their constituents and not necessarily specifically one or the other. For instance, where I live down by the river, I don't share the same views or the same resources that whoever lives up in the foothills by Hulls Gulch does, right? Like that's the north end. That's not that's not where I live, right? And they don't have the same views that I do. They don't deal with the same traffic that I do, the same congestion along Federal Way that I do. And similarly, people who live on Horseshoe Bend Road don't deal with the same issues that people on 15th Street do. And so I think, and I would say they have a similar situation as Southwest Boise in that case, right? Up by Horseshoe Bend Road, there's a lot of open fields. There's a lot of development going on. And yet we're not arguing for more representation that's specific to that area. And so I feel like we need to go with the lowest deviation, the lowest number of neighborhood association splits. And I feel like the rest has to be up to the city council members to adequately represent the people of those areas.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Commissioner Spiker because you and Eric, thank you both so much for taking maps that had precinct splits and all of those things and fixing them, because I think that is a monumental task. And anyone who had to work within the software knows that that was a huge task. So I just want to first thank you, Commissioner Spiker and Eric, for doing the best you possibly could for particularly on the precinct splits. I think that is a huge piece. I've said this at every single meeting, and I'm going to reiterate it here again today, that we can all have our own vision and identities for how the city of Boise looks and how we identify and how all of that works. And I work for locally elected officials, and I can tell you again with great vigor that the goal of this is to ensure that there is representation from different communities on city council. It will be impossible to capture the identities and the views of each individual person by drawing a map of 6 districts. Like, that is literally impossible. And as many of the people who participated in the public hearing last week told me, they did not envy what we had to do, because they know that there is no such thing as a magic wand where we can make every single person happy in this process. It is literally impossible. So what I have taken as my views as a commissioner is looking at the law and the policies set by the US Constitution, by the Idaho State Code, and by the policy set by the City Council. And I agree that map 11 is still meeting those tenets better than what we have written with map 20. And that is because it has a lower population deviation. It does split neighborhood associations less, and it still keeps precincts whole. So like the chair, I want to look at what the most legally viable map is and what has the most constitutional obligation to the patrons in the city and the citizens of Boise by ensuring that they have equal representation and who can represent them at the city council level. So I know it is so easy to get bogged down in how that looks and how we identify, but I still think we have to look at what the law and what the code is telling us to do as commissioners, because otherwise we get bogged down in how people view the city and how they feel they should be represented. The city of Boise is going to have 6 very different council members, regardless of how this process turns out, because that's how it has to work at the end of the day. So our job is to look at the Constitution in the state of Idaho to tell us how this process should look. The other thing I want to mention, why I'm hesitant about map 20, is that I know we were allowed to accept maps till the end of the week last week, and we did so. And I know that they were published on a website, and we've had criticisms about how the maps are viewable to the public. And, I know that having a few clicks on a website is frustrating, and I hear that 100%. I am uncomfortable sending a map to city council that has not had a true vetting by this commission. We have barely, and again, no offense to Travis, or Commissioner Spiker, excuse me, you have done a masterful job of doing what you needed to do and getting the precinct splits low, but we have not had a public hearing on map 20. We've still had overwhelming support for the map that we put out for the public for over 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. I don't actually know how many weeks that is, but I think it's close to 3 weeks, if not more. So we've had overwhelming, and I know that maybe it's not a requirement, but city council tasked this commission with ensuring that there was a transparent process where the citizens of Boise could come together and give us their input on this process. And I know that we had lots of folks who were upset by how map 11 looked and how West Boise was divided, but we still have to look to the laws and policies given to this commission in order to provide the most legally viable map to city council. And I just want to say thank you again, Commissioner Spiker, but I'll be supporting map 11.
Madam Chair, can I add something to this as well? I too am in support of map 11. I think it's going to be the most likely to hold up against any legal challenges that we encounter, given the the steps and the process that we need to have for the development of this map. It has the lowest deviation, less splits, and for the argument as far as like representatives, in these areas, I do hope that when they're campaigning, they get to know their community. They're walking the street, they're going up and down every which way, to get to know their communities and get to talk to them. So I believe that, the people in those communities are going to elect the correct person for themselves. And I think that map 11 just holds up a bit more for me substantially. So that's where I'm going to pretty much land on for right now. Thank you.
Chair Love.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to add, I'm going to be in support of map 20, just because I came into this totally just wanting to hear everybody's opinions. I was excited to get the feedback for map 8 and get map 11 and have the positive feedback, but to hear the negative feedback and some additional concerns, I found it really important to try and draw a new map that met everybody's concerns. And to the best of my abilities, I feel like this met everybody's concerns. It's still a legal map. It does have just a slightly different deviation. I mean, it's 0.5%. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. I'm going to support the map that I drew.
Yeah, the only other thing that I have to say is that we had more than just feedback about Southwest Boise. That was what came across in the meeting 2 weeks ago, but we also had some feedback about Southeast Boise, specifically the neighborhoods along Broadway and Rossi to, I can't remember what street it was, but basically they called it the Triangle neighborhoods. And then also in the Barber Park area. And I do want to say that we did hear you. I know Travis, I don't know if Travis looked at that when he was trying to draw a map. When I was trying to draw a map, I did look at that in order to add Columbia Valley or Columbia Village back into to 5 to stay with Barber Valley. It would have totally lopsided the population, and we would have had to go back to the drawing board about how to get precincts to line up. Same with that little Triangle neighborhood, the precincts there, and with the software and the census tracts, it just was not possible. So I do want to say that we did try with that. And like I said, if map 20 was a better map, numbers wise, neighborhood association split wise, all of these things that have been outlined to us by law, by the city council, I would be in support of map 20, but it is, it might be, it might be accepted more by those people who came to testify last week, but it's still technically and legally not a better map. And for me, that is why I will be supporting map 11. And with that, is there a motion to approve one of these maps to the Boise City Council, unless someone else has more? Kathy?
Yes, I would like to move.
Or
I'm not very hopeful,
Commissioner
but
Peter?
I would like to move that we send map 20 prepared by Commissioner Spiker to the council as our recommended map.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. And do we want to do a roll call? Okay, we'll do a roll call on that. Commissioner Spiker.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Love,
Opposed.
Perry,
Nay.
Peter,
Aye.
Spiker,
Yes.
Valderrama,
Opposed.
All right, is there a motion then to send map 11 to the Boise City Council?
Madam Chair, for a motion. I move to adopt map 11 as pictured on the screen. And I'm looking at the clerk to see if that's acceptable. Okay. As the Boise districting plan with the district's numbers applied across the screen. And if I receive a second, I will explain my reasoning.
Second.
So as I have reiterated, I believe that this commission should select this map. It does comply with both the state, federal, and local laws, including Idaho Code Title 50, Chapter 7. And based on the information collected and reviewed by this commission during this process, I conclude that this map, one, contains the number of districts that are equal as population as practicable, and contain the same number of people between districts to the nearest extent possible. It also contains districts composed of one or more election precincts, and it does not split any election precincts, something that we did not have to do, but did do. The districts also defined by this map are compact and are not shoestringed. It has been produced in a nonpartisan manner without reference to any incumbents. This map also keeps divisions of communities of interest and census tracts to a minimum. And this map does not minimize or cancel out the voting strength of racial or language minority groups and was not drawn for any discriminatory purpose.
We will move to a roll call vote. Oh, we had a second, or
I second it.
Love,
aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Peter,
Nay.
Spiker,
Nay.
Valderrama,
I,
I don't know if I have that sheet in front of me. Thank you. No, I was looking for this. I move to transmit the Boise districting plan to the Boise City Council and based upon the record certify that the city council seat district meets the criteria set forth in Idaho Code Section 57, 707A and other applicable statutes and laws. Right? Is that right?
Yeah. It's like on the first 2 pages.
Sorry.
It's a very long motion and I apologize.
Passes. Okay. Sorry. Map 11, as pictured in the back of this packet, passes and moves on to the city council. In a 3-2 vote, however you want to. Okay. Sorry. And with that,
Madam Chair, before we adjourn, can we make more comments?
yeah, if there's.
I just want to make
discussion,
closing. I just want to thank the commissioners for this work. I know that this has been a difficult process, a long, thoughtful process from everyone. I know it has not been easy for literally anyone who's been involved. I want to thank the city staff for your support in this process. And yeah, I just wanted to get all those thank yous out in the public and thank the staff and the commissioners for their work. Thank you.
And I would like to second that. I want to especially thank Commissioner Spiker for a lot of the hard work that he put in and anyone else who submitted maps and the public too for being a great participant in all of this. And the fact that we chose one of your maps is very evident of that. And then also the city of Boise and their staff has been wonderful to work with. I really appreciate that. And thank you, everyone else.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hold on, sorry. Oh, do we need to do a second motion? Oh, we didn't vote on that. No, do we need to vote on this? Okay, sorry, there is a second part. That's what I was thinking. Okay, that's. Yeah. Sorry, before we adjourn, there is one more thing.
Okay, I retract my motion to adjourn and hopefully my seconder will agree. Looks like we have one last thing we have to do.
Is there a second to retract?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, since map 11 prevails, I move to transmit the Boise districting plan to the Boise City Council and based upon the record certify that city council seat districts meet the criteria set forth in Idaho Code 50-707A and other applicable statutes and laws.
Is there a second?
second.
Do you want a roll call on this? We'll do a roll call.
Love,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Peter,
Nay.
Spiker,
Nay.
Valderrama,
I,
The motion passes to transmit the Boise districting plan to the Boise City Council, and based upon the record, certify that the city council seat districts meet the criteria set forth in Idaho Code, section 5707A, and other applicable statutes and laws. Should. I'll just say that the next steps is that these plans will go forward to the city council next week. They will have, or in 2 weeks, sorry, not next week, 2 weeks, on the November 29th, where they will take the plan up for reading and discussion. And I do believe it is a public hearing. And then it will be subject to 2 more readings after that on December 6th and December 13th, before they then take it up for final vote by the end of the year. And hopefully they don't send it back to us. Anyway, is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
second,
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
The Boise Districting Commission meeting for November 16th, 2022 is adjourned.